The human guard assigned Jace stood quietly near the grand golden doors of the Zyrene embassy ship. His face was calm, but his eyes watched everything. The other guards on the ship didn't talk to him. He was human, just a bodyguard from Earth. No one cared about him. To the alien council, he was lower than a servant. But he didn't complain. His job was simple: protect the alien diplomat named Viral. Viral was no ordinary diplomat. She was the daughter of a noble house, tall and elegant, with glowing silver eyes and long blue hair that floated gently in the air. Her voice could command entire halls to silence. She walked like royalty because she was. Her people, Zyrenes, were older than human history. And yet, her new bodyguard was a young human from a small planet with a short past. When she first saw Jace, she frowned. "Is this a joke?" she asked her assistant. "A human to guard me?" But her assistant said, "Nothing. The council had chosen him." Viral sighed, brushing her long robe behind her. "Very well," she said. "He will not last long anyway." The journey began. Viral was traveling to a peace summit where many races would meet. But there were enemies who didn't want peace. And that's where Jace's presence became more important than anyone thought. On the third day, something happened. Viral was speaking with leaders in the conference room. Jace stood near the wall, scanning the room with his eyes. Suddenly, a small, almost invisible dart flew from the ceiling. It moved fast, too fast for most to see. But Jace moved faster. He threw himself in front of Viral. The dart hit his shoulder. It sank deep. Viral turned just in time to see Jace fall to the floor, his face already pale. Blood poured from the wound, dark red against his uniform. Gasps filled the room. Someone screamed. The guards rushed forward, but Viral pushed them back. "Move," she ordered. She bent beside Jace, her face full of shock. "Why did you do that?" she asked. He tried to speak, but his voice was weak. The mission," he whispered. Viral looked down at his wound. The dart carried a rare poison. She could smell it. Her own people's medics rushed in, but even they hesitated. "He is human," one medic said. "Our medicines will not help him." "Then do something else," Viral shouted, but the medic shook his head. "Without matching blood or human medicine, he will die in minutes." Viral froze. Her silver eyes locked on Jace's pale face. Something inside her broke. She touched his cheek gently. Her voice trembled. "I didn't even ask your name." One of her aides whispered, "If you act now, you will break the high protocol." Viral looked at him, her face cold. "Let them strip me of my title. Let them lock me away. But I won't let him die." Before anyone could stop her, she took a blade from her belt and cut her own palm. Glowing violet blood dripped from her hand. She placed it on Jace's wound. Her blood carried nanites, microscopic machines that healed and rebuilt cells. It was a secret of her race, forbidden to use on outsiders. But she didn't care now. The medics gasped. Her aides begged her to stop. "You'll face trial. You'll be removed from the council." But Viral didn't move. She held her hand to his wound, and her blood began to glow brighter. Jace's breathing slowed, then steadied. His skin became warm again. His heartbeat returned. And then he opened his eyes. Viral stared at him, still holding his shoulder. "You should have let the dart hit me," she said softly. Jace gave a small smile. "Not my style." Silence filled the room. Every alien watched in disbelief. A human had taken a dart meant for a noble diplomat, and the noble diplomat had broken law to save him. Something had changed, something that no rule or law could stop now. And for the first time, Viral no longer saw Jace as just a bodyguard. She saw him as something far more dangerous. She saw him as important. And that frightened her. The blood of honor, the council chamber buzzed with quiet tension. Word had already spread through the ship. An alien diplomat had broken high protocol to save a human. Viral, once admired for her perfect discipline, now sat alone in the dark medical bay, her hands still wrapped in silver bindings. The healing blood she gave Jace was gone from her veins, but not from her heart. Jace lay unconscious on a narrow recovery bed. Machines beeped softly around him. His face was calm, almost peaceful, but Viral couldn't forget the moment he bled for her. That image wouldn't leave her mind, his body shielding hers, his blood staining her robe. She didn't understand why it shook her so deeply. Her aide, Trell, stood by the door, looking nervous. "My lady, the council is furious." They demand a formal explanation. You broke the sacred law. You used your blood for a human. Viral didn't answer. She kept her eyes on Jace. After a long silence, she finally spoke. He didn't pause. He didn't think. He just moved to protect me. Trell swallowed. But he's human. Yes, she said quietly. And yet no Zyrene has ever protected me like that. Not even my own kind. Trell stepped closer. Then do you feel something for him? Her fingers curled. I don't know what this feeling is. But I know I cannot. Forget him. Suddenly, Jace stirred. His fingers twitched, and his eyes blinked open slowly. He looked confused, breathing shallow. Viral rose from her chair and stepped forward. Where am I? He murmured. You're safe, she said gently. You were poisoned. He tried to sit up, but groaned in pain. She reached out to steady him, and for a moment, their hands touched. Her skin was cool as warm. I thought. I was done for, Jace whispered. You were, Viral said. Until I made a choice. He looked at her, searching her face. They told me Zyrenes don't help outsiders. She hesitated. They don't. But I did. Why? He asked. She didn't answer. Not with words. Instead, she turned and faced the window that showed the stars outside. Because you gave me something I thought didn't exist in this galaxy anymore. Selfless protection. Jace managed a weak smile. I just did my job. She shook her head. No. Others would have stepped aside. You didn't. Suddenly, the door hissed open. 3 high-ranked council guards entered, dressed in dark armor. Behind them came an older alien, Counselor Merrick, with deep lines on his face and sharp yellow eyes. Diplomat Viral, he said coldly. You are under investigation for breaking the high protocol. You risked Zyrene secrets. You gave sacred blood to an unranked human. You will return to the council ship immediately. Jace tried to stand, but Viral raised a hand. Stay. Merrick stepped forward. The human must be removed from the diplomatic vessel. He is no longer part of the assignment. No, she said, her voice low but firm. He remains with me. Merrick narrowed his eyes. You defy us further? Viral stepped in front of Jace. I owe him my life. I gave him my blood. That bond is more sacred than any written law. Gasps echoed in the hallway behind them. Jace looked confused. What does that mean? Viral didn't look back. She faced the counselor. You know what it means. Our blood carries memory, emotion, truth. I didn't just save him. I connected to him. Merrick's face turned pale. You bound yourself to a human. Her voice didn't shake. Yes. The guards raised their weapons slightly. Merrick gave a signal to lower them again. Then prepare yourself, Viral. You will not walk away from this without consequences. He turned and left. The guards followed. Viral closed her eyes for a moment, then turned back to Jace. He looked stunned. What did you just do? He asked softly. She smiled, though. There was sadness in it. I just made you more dangerous than you ever wanted to be. And as Jace sat in silence, a thought began to grow in his heart. Protecting her was no longer just duty. It was destiny. Asterisk waking in change, Jace opened his eyes to a soft humming sound. The light above him was bright, too bright, and the room was colder than he remembered. He tried to move, but his wrists were strapped to the bed. His ankles, too. He was a patient, but treated like a prisoner. He blinked, trying to remember. The dart, the pain, the silver eyes of Viral staring at him, full of fear. Her hand bleeding, her blood on his skin. Now he was here, alone, restrained, and guarded. 2 silent Zyrene soldiers stood near the door, eyes like stone. They didn't speak. They didn't move. He turned his head painfully and saw a thin mirror across the room. Not a mirror, a viewing screen. Someone was watching him from the other side. He could feel it. The door opened with a soft hiss. And she walked in royal robes now. She wore a simple white diplomatic tunic. Her hair was tied back. Her eyes were tired, but focused only on him. Jace, she said softly, his voice was dry. Did I fail? No, she said. You succeeded. Too well. She touched the console beside his bed, and the straps released one by one. He sat up slowly, his muscles sore, his body heavy. But his eyes stayed locked on hers. Why? Am I restrained? He asked. She looked down. The council ordered it. They believe you're a danger now. Not because of the dart, but because of me. He frowned. Because of you? She stepped closer. I saved you using forbidden means. My blood changed. You Not just physically, our minds connected. You carry part of my essence now. The council fears what you might become. Jace ran a hand through his hair. I didn't ask for this. No, she said. But you chose to bleed for me, and I chose to break law for you. That choice changed everything. He stood, wobbling slightly. She didn't offer support. She knew he wouldn't take it. But she did stand close, close enough that her presence steadied him. So what now? He asked. Viral looked at the viewing screen. Now they watch. They wait. They want to see if I'll undo the bond. He laughed bitterly. And can you? She hesitated. Yes, but I won't. A long silence passed between them. Then Jace said, You're risking everything. Her answer was quiet. You already did. I'm only returning the debt. Suddenly, the door opened again. A young Zyrene aide entered, his face pale. Forgive me, my lady, he whispered, glancing at Jace with fear. You need to see this. He handed her a small data pad. Viral read the message quickly. Her eyes grew sharp. She turned the screen toward Jace. It showed a name, a map, and one simple phrase. Target next, human colony Arcos Prime. Assassination team en route. Jace's heart dropped. That colony was home to thousands of civilians. Scientists. Families. Children. He looked at Viral. We have to stop them. She nodded. We will. But not with council approval. They've already blocked the message. They want it buried. Then we go around them. Jace said. Viral studied his face. It will make us fugitives. Jace tightened his fists. Then let them chase us. She smiled faintly, and for the first time, her voice held something new. Not command. Not fear. Hope. We leave tonight, she said. And as the guards stepped aside and the viewing screen went dark, one thing became clear. Jace was no longer just a protector. He was now the reason a powerful alien diplomat was ready to burn her own laws for justice. The secret mission Nightfall came quietly on the Zyrene diplomatic ship, but not in Viral's mind. Her world was shifting faster than light. The rules she had lived by all her life, loyalty to the council, service to the empire, respect for tradition, felt small now. All she could think about was the human who bled for her, and the children who would die if they did nothing. Jace stood beside her in the silent hangar, dressed no longer as a bodyguard, but as something far more dangerous, an outlaw in the making. He had stolen a security pass, reprogrammed a path through the ship's cameras, and mapped a route off the vessel. But he hadn't said a word about what it meant for him, for her, for both. Viral held the datapad in her hand. The message about Arcos Prime was real. An assassin cell was being sent under the name of a fake inspection crew. The human council would never know until it was too late. This ship, Jace said quietly, will take us as far as the Zyrene border. And after that? She asked. He looked at her. We run. Or we fight. She took a deep breath. I was born into power, Jace. I was raised to follow the council without question. But ever since you jumped in front of that dart, I've been questioning everything. He turned to her. You don't owe me anything. Her voice trembled. No, I don't. But I want to help. And that frightens me more than breaking the law. Suddenly, an alarm blinked on a nearby panel. Jace rushed forward. Someone tripped the surveillance. They're coming. Before Viral could answer, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Voices called out in Zyrene language. The hangar was no longer safe. Jace grabbed her hand. There's no turning back now. Do you still want this? Viral looked down at their joined hands, hers glowing faintly blue, his warm and steady. I never wanted this, she said. But I want you beside me now. So yes. They sprinted to the stealth pod. As the ship's doors opened, red lights flashed across the ceiling. Security drones dropped from above. Jace fired a pulse round at one, then pulled Viral down just as a stun blast hit the wall behind them. She turned and screamed a command in Zyrene dialect. Half the drones froze. The others retreated. Did you just override them? He asked, amazed. I am still a diplomat. She replied with a smirk. They dove into the ship. As Jace powered up the engines, Viral accessed the local database one last time and sent out a ghost signal, one only a rebel spy would catch. The pod shook violently as it exited the hangar. Behind them, alarms blared louder. Ships launched in pursuit. Tracking us? He asked. Yes, she said. And the council knows exactly where we're going. They won't let you go easily, will they? No, they won't, she whispered. But I'm not the same woman they once controlled. as the stars blurred around them and the diplomatic ship vanished behind a field of distant light. Viral reached for the console. "We'll reach Arcos Prime in 2 days," she said. "If we survive." Jace leaned back. "You broke protocol. For me. I'll break the galaxy for you if I have to." And though danger pressed in from all sides, a quiet fire now burned between them. No longer just a guard and a diplomat. They were a team, hunted and unchained. What they didn't know yet was this. Someone had already leaked their escape, and a deadly visitor was waiting on Arcos Prime. Asterisk betrayal at the gate. Arcos Prime rose into view like a blue-green jewel floating in deep space. From a distance, it looked peaceful, its mountains quiet, its oceans calm. But Viral felt a heaviness in her chest as the stealth pod entered orbit. Jace sat beside her, silent, scanning the colony's signals. Something wasn't right. "There are no patrols," he said. "No defense alerts. Nothing. It's too quiet." Viral nodded. "They're already here." They landed near a cargo field on the outskirts of the colony. The base was half asleep, dim lights glowing in the early dawn. A few engineers worked nearby, but didn't look up. The air smelled of burned fuel and something else, something colder. Jace stepped out first, weapon ready. Viral followed, wrapping her cloak tightly. She had sent a message to a contact in the colony's security network, a ZY named Kale. He had sworn loyalty to her years ago. He promised safe entry and shelter, but when they reached the control post, the gate was open. No guards. No Kale. Jace raised his weapon higher. "Too easy." Viral stepped forward. "Kale should have been here." And then came the sound. Boots. Slow, heavy, echoing through the metal floor. From the shadows, a group of ZY soldiers stepped out, armed, alert, and aiming directly at them. "Don't move." The leader barked. Viral froze. Her eyes narrowed. "Who gave you this command?" The leader stepped forward. Her voice was calm, cold. "You are to be returned, lady." Viral. "And the human? He's no longer your responsibility." Behind her, another figure appeared. Viral's heart twisted. Kale, he didn't meet her eyes. "You betrayed me," she whispered. Kale finally looked up. "I warned you not to run. I begged you to stop. But you wouldn't listen." Jace stepped in front of her. "We came to stop an attack. They're targeting civilians, human children, ZY workers, everyone. You're siding with murderers." Kale didn't answer. His face held guilt, but also fear. The squad stepped closer. Jace pulled Viral behind him. "You'll have to go through me," he said. The leader raised her weapon. "Gladly." Then something unexpected happened. Another voice echoed from the rooftops. "Enough." A group of civilians, both human and ZY, stepped into view. Some held tools, others crude weapons. Among them was a small boy who pointed directly at Viral and said, "She warned us. She saved us." The soldiers hesitated. Viral stepped forward again, her voice now full of fire. "You see," she shouted. "The council sent assassins to silence truth. But truth doesn't die so easily." Kale lowered his weapon. "Stand down," he said to the squad. "Let them speak." The leader turned to him, furious. "You risk exile." He met her glare. "So be it." A tense moment passed. Then the soldiers slowly lowered their weapons. The leader gave a sharp order and turned away, retreating into the mist. Viral exhaled. She looked at Kale, her eyes sharp. "This isn't over." "I know," he said, "but at least now you have a chance." As the sun began to rise over Arcos Prime, the silence broke. Sirens wailed from the main colony. Explosions shook the far side of the base. Jace grabbed Viral's hand. "They're here." And this time, there would be no council, no law, no protocol, only survival. Asterisk when loyalty becomes love. The sky over Arcos Prime turned orange as fires spread from the colony's edge. Black smoke twisted above the domes, and the ground shook beneath Viral's feet. The real attack had begun, but she wasn't afraid. She stood at the heart of the chaos, surrounded by humans and ZY who once saw each other as strangers. Now, side by side, they held tools, weapons, and courage, because one human bodyguard and one exiled diplomat had dared to defy silence. Jace barked orders near the colony gate, helping civilians into shelters. His uniform was torn, dust coated his face, but his eyes were sharp and calm. Viral watched him as he lifted a child to safety. He bled, limped, and pushed through pain, But he never stopped. She walked up beside him, her voice steady despite the noise. You should rest. You're hurt. He wiped blood from his cheek. No time for that. Not until they're safe. You keep giving, she said softly. And I keep watching. He glanced at her. What do you see? I see a man with no title, no power, who still makes others follow. He gave a tired smile. And I see a diplomat who broke every law just to do what's right. She stepped closer. You bled for me. I broke protocol for you. What do we call that? He looked into her glowing silver eyes. I think that's called loyalty. She took his hand. No, Jace. It's more. Just then, an explosion shook. The outer wall. Enemy dropships began to land. Dark, sleek, full of elite assassins sent by the Council's secret branch. The kind of soldiers who didn't take prisoners. Jace turned serious again. We hold the gate here. We can't let them breach the inner dome. Viral nodded. Then let them come. The battle was swift and brutal. Plasma bolts lit the air. Jace led a squad of human engineers and farmers, now fighters, using traps, smoke screens, and clever tricks. Viral used her authority to override security drones, turning them against the invaders. The people saw it all, a human and a ZY ring, fighting together as equals, as one dot, and in the heart of the flames, when they were surrounded. Viral stood in front of Jace, her body trembling from exhaustion. One assassin raised a blade toward him, and she stepped in the way. The blade struck her shoulder. Jace screamed and caught her as she fell. His hands were covered in her blood. No, Viral. Stay with me. She gritted her teeth, her voice weak but clear. You bled for me first. Now it's my turn. No, he said, eyes burning. You're not allowed to do that. She smiled faintly. You humans, always. Trying to control everything. The assassin raised his weapon again, but didn't get the chance. A dozen civilians swarmed him, taking him down. Jace carried Viral back inside as the battle moved to the final stage. Hours later, when the fight ended, smoke still curled through the ruins, but the invaders had retreated. The colony had survived. In the med bay, Viral lay on a table, her wounds healing slowly. She opened her eyes to see Jace beside her, his hand holding hers. I thought I lost you, he said. She looked at him gently. You'll never lose me now. And in that moment, surrounded by scars and silence, something deeper bloomed between them. Not just survival, not just duty, love, not declared in words, but in every wound, every choice, every breath taken for the other. The Council's last warning. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. Not a single voice dared speak. Every seat was filled. Zyrines, Terrans, Arviks, Drelly, and more. All watched as Viral, cloaked in white with her shoulders still bandaged, walked down the long path toward the center of the floor. Behind her, Jace followed, not in chains, not in uniform, but in quiet defiance. The broadcast was live across the galaxy. Billions watched. Every word would matter now. The high speaker stood. Lady Viral of Zyrine. You disobeyed council orders. You fled your post. You bonded with a human and led an unauthorized military action on a protected colony. What do you have to say for yourself? Viral looked around, her voice steady. I did everything you say, and I would do it again. Gasps filled the room. She continued. You sit in this circle and pretend rules will protect us. But while you argued over laws, assassins were sent. A colony was nearly lost. And one man, one human, bled to protect me when no one else moved. She turned to Jace. He stood calmly, hands folded, silent as ever. I was raised to follow, she said. But he taught me to lead with heart. I saw fear in your halls, but courage in his eyes. You fear him not because he is dangerous, but because he is human, because he is willing to protect something without being ordered. The high speaker's voice boomed. You risked war between species. No, she answered. I risked peace built on lies. And I found a better truth. Whispers filled the air. Some council members looked away. Others leaned forward. Then Jace stepped forward for the first time. I didn't come here to speak, he said. But I won't let her stand alone. She saved my life. She saved a colony. She stood against her own empire to do what was right. If that's a crime, then let me be guilty too. Silence again. And then, from the far side of the chamber, a new voice rang out. Councillor Dravax of the Drelly race stood and spoke clearly. We move to vote. One by one, hands rose. Not all, but enough. The judgment. Viral will not be punished. The bond between her and the human would be recognized. And the secret war agents would be hunted, not protected. The chamber buzzed with disbelief. Jace turned to her. You did it. She smiled faintly. No, we did it. Later, on a quiet balcony far above the council floor, they stood together, watching the stars. I never thought I'd be anything more than a guard, Jace whispered. Viral leaned on his shoulder. And I never thought I'd fall in love with one. He looked at her. What now? She took his hand and replied. Now, we build something better. Together. And beneath the stars, a human and an alien who had broken every rule stood. Unafraid, because love had changed the laws, and courage had rewritten destiny.